Good morning. I'm Kimberly Bishop, Associate State Director at AARP Michigan, and I'd like to welcome you to another session of Learn a Latte. One of the reasons that we call this Learn a Latte is because we're hoping that you're joining us with your morning cup of coffee to hear about a topic of interest to those who are 50 and older and their loved ones. These sessions are held on the first and third Wednesday of each month at 10. So if this is the first time that you're joining us, we hope to see you back in a couple of weeks. Learn a Latte is just one of the many virtual events that we have planned this year. Please visit our webpage at aarp.org/Michigan and click the virtual events link to see what's coming up. The page is updated frequently, so please bookmark it and visit often. Today's topic is dealing with chronic conditions. You'll learn some wellness tips for living a full, satisfying life while managing chronic health issues such as pain, cancer, and diabetes. You'll also hear about specific programs that can help you or a loved one who is experiencing a chronic illness. I'd like to introduce you to Martha York.
Good morning.
Good morning, Martha. Martha is the Community Education Coordinator at Region 2 Area Agency on Aging. As a licensed social worker for over 30 years, Martha has interacted with the Jackson community in roles including early Head Start coordinator, a hospice social worker, medical case manager, activity director, and coordinator of a 52-bed memory care unit. In her current position, she runs evidence-based programs for people with chronic health conditions. Martha is a master trainer and facilitates several self-management workshops. She's passionate about providing encouragement to people with varying backgrounds, health challenges, and trauma recovery to optimize their ability to still do what they want to do in life. Welcome, Martha, and thank you for joining us this morning. This is an interactive program, and viewers may ask questions by posting them in the comments section. We will not be able to answer questions about individual circumstances where you may need to seek assistance from your medical care provider, but we'll do our best to provide you with useful tips and information about finding resources that are available to you in your area. So Martha, let's get started. We talked about, the title of this is dealing with chronic health conditions. Can you give us a few examples of chronic conditions and what that means?
Absolutely. So when I think of chronic conditions, I think of a health concern that you're dealing with that kind of doesn't go away. Like if you get diagnosed with diabetes or congestive heart failure or a chronic lung disease, COPD. Perhaps I'm a cancer survivor, and that's something that even though I'm well with no active cancer signs at this point, I still have that issue in my life and something that I have to continue to monitor and to maintain wellness by. But it can also be things like chronic pain or arthritis, fibromyalgia, and it can include mental health concerns as well, depression, anxiety. These are ongoing concerns that can be challenging to deal with.
Okay. What are some challenges that people face if they have a chronic health condition?
It's a great question. You know, a lot of times when I am speaking with people with chronic conditions, I see some common themes, that they are chronically discouraged because they're dealing with perhaps daily pain and fears about the future, like what's going to happen if this progresses, how am I going to be dependent on other people for assistance. They can also be dealing with some depression and frustration because they're not able to do what they used to do or do it in the same way. Perhaps it's brought along some financial stress and burdens that way as well. So I see a lot of times people will feel like they're alone, that nobody completely understands, that the medical community is not able to help as much as they would like. So I see that chronic discouragement being something that's pretty common.
So what kind of things can people do to take better care of themselves if they have a chronic health condition?
There's a lot of things that people can choose to do. And I think the powerful thing about it is if you do select some of these tools that I'm going to suggest, it gives you a little bit of a sense of control over what's going on. And maybe you don't feel quite so much like you're at the whim of your pain or your condition. So things like being physically active, that can be one of the best things that people do. Get up, get started moving to your ability, stretching, strength training, a little bit of aerobic activity. Those are important. We can also have some choice over the kind of foods that we eat. If we elect to eat a more healthy diet, that may make you feel better and may improve your symptom management. And staying well hydrated, drinking extra fluids, especially when you might not feel thirsty, but reminding yourself to make sure that you're drinking that water every day. You can also do other things like manage your stress. There may be some problem solving tools that you could use to get some of those things out of your life. I like to think of things like clutter. If you've got extra clutter around your house, that can be depressing, right? But maybe if you take some time and every day you get rid of one box of something, that may make you feel a little bit more in control, a little bit more on top of things in your life.
So, Martha, I know that you're doing these workshops virtually during the pandemic. Do you find that the pandemic is adding an extra layer of discouragement or frustration to people?
Absolutely, absolutely. People feel very isolated right now, and it's easy to get more sedentary as we're holed up at home. And so I think that there are a lot of things that people can think about doing, just still sticking to some routine. Still getting up every day, getting dressed is important. It helps with your mood just to maybe put something on your calendar. And it could be something small, like I'm going to clean the bathroom today, or it could be something like I'm going to reach out to a friend of mine and engage. I think we really need to be intentional about connecting through phone or through, you know, Facebook, through any sort of FaceTiming on your phone too, where you can see and hear faces. All of that makes a big difference in helping people to feel a little bit more connected and less alone. And when you're dealing with chronic conditions, it's hard to have a lot of energy anyhow. So just anything that you can do to build a little bit of routine in and have some sort of purpose in your day, something that you aim for, is good. It's good for your mental health.
I was just going to say, it sounds like from what you're saying, it's not just about the physical health, but also maintaining your health emotionally. Um, are there other things that you can suggest that people do to be sure that they are caring for themselves emotionally? Because sometimes people aren't even aware that that's a really important thing to do, or they may feel selfish kind of thinking about that and taking care of their emotional health.
So I'm so glad you're pointing that out. Really, for people with chronic conditions, especially, those difficult emotions are part of the package deal. There's something that happens routinely for anybody who's got a chronic condition. So it doesn't mean that you're not positive enough or not hopeful enough or not prayerful enough. It just is part of the package. So what people can do is take time to perhaps journal your thoughts and your feelings, writing things down. Psychologists find that to be a really helpful tool, and it makes people feel like they're managing their life better and feel a little bit more in control. You can also do things like meditation, breathing, deep breathing techniques, and just some of that, what you hear is mindfulness, which is meaning choosing to be present in the moment and to relax and to build that into your day. I think it's also important to remember that if you're challenged by difficult emotions, reach out and talk to somebody. Get some professional help as needed. Counseling can be one of the greatest gifts that you give to yourself. So taking time to connect that way is important, but really learning how to manage your stress levels and breaking things down into doable tasks instead of feeling overwhelmed and feeling like I can't even get started with one thing. We can all do one thing, and that will help with your mental health as well, picking one thing to do.
You know, even though many of us are still practicing safer at home, whether it's working remotely because, people may still be working and have a chronic health condition, this doesn't really impact a particular age. What adjustments do you think people can make to their day or their schedules to kind of alleviate some of the busyness and to take better care of themselves?
Oh, it's a great question. Pacing ourselves and planning mindfully for what we're able to do and what we can accomplish in a day is really, really helpful. And I think there's two ends of the spectrum there, Kim. There can be people who tend to be inactive. They're a little bit more sedentary and tend to underdo during their day, versus there are other people who tend to overdo. They really overschedule themselves. So for those who are a little bit more inactive, I suggest trying to stick to a routine, planning to get up, get dressed, but also have regular meals, have certain activities maybe plan for one thing that you're going to do in the morning and one thing you're going to do in the afternoon, and push yourself to stick to that plan. That can be something that gives you a sense of purpose each day. Maybe even if you write it down and make a list, you can check it off and you feel like you've accomplished something. So that's really important for the people who tend to be more inactive. And for those who tend to overdo it and overschedule, that we were in such a society that says, get it done in a day and move that bus kind of a theory. But really, it might be more helpful to prioritize your activities. And pardon me about that phone. It can be helpful to, I'm not sure if you know, sorry about that. I don't have a way to shut that off right at the moment.
That's
Um,
that's okay. We've learned flexibility and,
okay, I'll mute
technology is what
myself
it
for
is.
a second while it finishes.
So we do have a question from a viewer, but it looks like there may be some confusion about the Area Agency on Aging versus the AAA insurance company. So I would just like to reiterate that this particular session is about how an individual or a caregiver can help someone manage a chronic health condition and still live a full and satisfying life. So, Martha, I know that you host workshops and that you do training. What kind of participants do you have in your training? Not what kind, but what different what's the range of maybe some of the things that they're dealing with? And really what I'm trying to get to is making sure that people understand like this workshop might really be for me.
Okay. We have a variety of workshops that we offer. We have one that's called PATH, which is sort of like a catch-all for any kind of chronic condition. And we don't restrict like an age requirement for people to attend. If you're dealing with a chronic condition, whether it's cancer, diabetes, fibromyalgia, depression, you can join that workshop. And it's also open to caregivers as well. So if you want to learn some tips on how to address these various layers or elements of dealing with a chronic condition on a daily basis, like troubles with sleeping or dealing with fatigue, or not just how to eat healthy, but how to practice some weight management things that might work better for you. We have a whole variety of things that we discuss. And so if you're dealing with a chronic condition, you could take the PATH one. But if you have a specific condition like diabetes, we do have one that's called Diabetes Path, and that one teaches people a little bit more about monitoring your blood sugars, understanding how to comprise a menu that is going to be friendly to helping you with managing your blood sugars successfully, but also learning tips about how to manage your stress and how that impacts your blood sugar levels as well. So we have some that are specific to certain chronic conditions, like Cancer Path is for people who are dealing with any kind of cancer. And you don't have to be like recently diagnosed. It could be something that you are now no longer in active treatment for, but you still have that condition and you want to figure out what can I be doing to take good care of myself. So whether you're newly diagnosed with any of these conditions or you've been living with it for a long time, you can benefit from the workshop. And if you're a caregiver, we invite them to come, because the better you understand that person's condition, the better you can help them with their own self-care. But you also, as caregivers, have your own set of issues and concerns and challenges, and we support caregivers. The program is designed to help caregivers talk with other caregivers as well, and they get an added benefit of some peer support there. That's really beautiful.
So for these different workshops, is it like one session, multiple sessions? How would people find out about them?
Okay, great question. Our evidence-based programs are designed to be, typically there's 6-week workshops where people will meet once a week for 2.5 hours. And we do it right now via Zoom. That means if you have a smartphone or a computer or an iPad, you can log into the meeting. And if you're like, oh, I've never used Zoom before, we actually provide technical assistance to people to help them know how to download the app and how to get in. We're doing everything we can during this pandemic to give people a way to still participate. Back when before COVID, we did all of these workshops in person, and we certainly hope to return to that someday. But the beauty of it right now, with it being virtual, is that anyone from across the state of Michigan can join in on our workshops. And how they would learn about it is either going to their local area agency on aging, or they can certainly call our organization at its Region 2 Area Agency on Aging. Our phone number is 517-592-1974. Or if you prefer to email us, you can just go right to our Living Well Programs email, which is livingwellprograms@r2aaa.net.
Very good, very good. It sounds like, as we're all dealing with a pandemic, our health conditions, our issues haven't changed. We just have to find different ways to get the information to manage them better. So I'm really glad that Region 2, and I'm sure other AAAs as well, have found ways to continue to reach older adults. Technology is certainly can be a barrier for some. So, uh, but we also have to be really cognizant of safety and following whatever the local orders are regarding the pandemic. We do have your telephone number displaying on screen.
Great.
So if anyone needs to call, um, do you have thoughts on what programs might be better for caregivers versus someone who is actively experiencing something? Because sometimes people are resistant to change, or they're resistant to looking for help. So if I have a spouse or a parent, for example, who says, yeah, I don't need that, what might I do, or what program might I take to help support them better and stay healthy myself in the process?
Oh, so important. And you're right, caregivers typically put their own self-care last and are reluctant to carve out time for themselves. But it's so important that they find that balance and get that support for themselves as well. We offer several caregiver programs that are also online. One of them is called Powerful Tools for Caregivers. And that program is geared for someone regardless of who it is that you're caring for or what kind of condition they may have. It's really aimed at helping a caregiver to understand how to do better self-care. That's a 6-week program that is 2 hours each week. And so that's available. Through Region 2 Area Agency on Aging, we have a program for caregivers specific to someone with dementia or Alzheimer's. If they're taking care of someone with those conditions, we've got our True Alta program, which gives them online resources where they can sort of do a self-tutorial here and there on a time that's convenient for them. Maybe they're up in the middle of the night and they want to watch a 7-minute video on how to transfer someone, or how to manage some challenging behaviors. And they can do it on their own pace and at their own time, which is great. We have two additional webinar type of workshops as well. One is called Developing Dementia Dexterity. It's a mouthful, but what that is a 3-session webinar for caregivers specific to caring for someone with dementia or Alzheimer's. And that person who attends, it's only 1 hour once a week for 3 weeks. So it's a little bit more time condensed to make it convenient for caregivers. We have a broader version of that program called Creating Confident Caregivers. And that one is a 6-week program where they meet once a week for 2 hours instead. And it's a little bit more of an opportunity to benefit from the peer support and the added interaction with fellow caregivers. So those are programs specific, pardon me, to caregivers with dementia or Alzheimer's as their situation at home, because there are unique challenges to that particular.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
We have a question from one of our viewers. Luana would like to know, she says she has a friend that has fibromyalgia, so she's not necessarily a caregiver, but what can she best do to help or support her?
Oh, that's great that you want to show her support. Fibromyalgia is particularly challenging because what happens with that is they might feel good, better one day and worse another day, and it hurts in different places on different days. So it's a very, very debilitating and discouraging condition. So I think first of all, showing them compassion and care and just saying, "Gosh, I get it. You know, it's hard. It must be very, very challenging." Showing empathy to that person first and foremost, and encouraging them to maybe try one of our workshops, because again, you know, they get, what my experience is with people with fibromyalgia is that they oftentimes feel very, very chronically discouraged and feel like, oh, I've been there, done that, tried it before, it doesn't work for me, you know. So tell them to, well, just try again, and maybe this time you might grab one piece that is a little bit more useful for you. And usually just taking that first step of registering and coming to a workshop gives someone a little bit of a sense of hope, a little bit of a feeling that I'm not in this alone. That in sometimes what I say to people who are friends or family members is offer to attend it with them. You know, sign up for it together and say, well, you know, let's do this together. It'd be a great way for me to see you, you know, maybe online, even though I can't visit you in person right now, but I can do this together with you. And I'm sure I'll benefit from it too, because they do. Caregivers learn just as much. So you can offer to assist with getting them registered as well as going along with them.
So, as people who are dealing with or managing chronic health conditions, working with their physicians or members of their care team, what would be your best advice for someone just to keep in mind, or their caregiver, as they're meeting with their medical professionals? Because again, if you're talking about something chronic, it's not going to go away. But I understand that symptoms may change or how you feel may change. But what's the best advice that you have for someone just making sure that they're staying connected with their medical professionals?
This is so important, Kim. I'm really glad you brought it up, because when you have a chronic condition, the treatment plan is oftentimes a little less clear. And it may feel really nebulous, and the doctor may feel like they're throwing their hands in the air saying, I'm not really sure what to offer to you anymore. So what we do as the person with the condition is really, really critical. What we bring to that conversation and to those appointments. I always encourage people to track your symptoms and to track what you're doing, what you're trying, how it's working for you, and also to label, you know, maybe what your treatment preferences are, because you're in charge of your own care plan, and you can say what works for you or what you're willing to do and what you think is not part of your lifestyle or not important to you. But if you come into that doctor's office and you've got a list of, hey, I've tried this, this, and this is what was working, what wasn't, it gives a little bit more credibility to the provider that you are really trying to manage this successfully. And I think it lends to a little bit more attentiveness on the provider's end. I also recommend that you make 2 copies of that list so that you can hand one to the doctor or the MA who's rooming you, or whoever it is that you're meeting with, and you're looking at the same list together, because they may pick something out of that note of what you wanted to address, and they may have more questions, or more, it may lead them to a little different direction of how they're going to suggest treatment for you. So bring 2 lists. I also recommend that you bring somebody with you to your appointments if it's possible. Sometimes having that extra pair of ears will help, but it also shows that provider that, we've got a team of people who are looking after and want to attend to me. And sometimes that will give a different level of seriousness to the concerns that you're bringing to the table. So I suggest that. And if you don't have someone in your life that's willing or able to go with you, you can request having a nurse practitioner or a case manager, a nurse navigator. There are different positions in many healthcare organizations that you can ask them to come into the appointment with you as your advocate, that says, no, this person's really struggling and they need some added assistance. And I'm here to vouch for that and to make sure that that happens.
I It's so interesting that you say that. I lost my mother to dementia a little over a year ago, and for the last few years of her life, for every appointment, my brother and sister and I all went.
No.
And I do think it made a huge difference because the doctor, if one of us was missing, the doctor would be, well, where's your sister today? Or where's your brother today? So I do think that the medical professional does take a little different, gives you a little different responds to you differently when they know that you have a team who is really trying to make sure that you have the best possible outcome. So, thank you for mentioning that.
Mhm.
We are winding to a close. So, I'd like to ask Martha, of all of the things that we've talked about, if there's a question that I've missed, or something that you'd like to share, a final thought for either someone who's dealing with the chronic health condition or their caregiver, to either encourage them or just a tidbit to help make things a little bit more manageable for them.
Okay. Well, I think the biggest takeaway, I hope, is that I want you to feel validated that having a chronic condition is hard, and you don't have to go it alone. You don't It can feel very lonesome. You can feel like, oh, I must not be proactive enough, I must not be working hard enough, I'm not prayerful enough, I'm not positive enough. That's not true. You're going to have some days that are difficult and challenging emotionally, and I think the best thing that you can do is to recognize when those are becoming problematic and pick up one of those tools, whether it's joining a workshop, becoming physically active, choosing to get dressed and to have a routine today. Choose one thing that you can do, and you're going to feel a little bit more in control of your life. And that means that after attending a workshop or doing something like that, you're going to feel like you do have better quality of living. You have some say, and there are still things to be hopeful and joyful about.
Thank you so much, Martha. I've enjoyed having you, and I'm looking forward. I know that you're going to be on another session, at least one more with us a little later this year. I really enjoyed our Learn a Latte over our cup of coffee, and would like to encourage people, if they have questions or concerns about workshops or any of the things that we've talked about, to contact Martha or someone at the Area Agency on Aging at www.r2aaa.net. Also, if you have questions about workshops that we may be providing, you can visit our webpage at aarp.org/Michigan to see our upcoming events. So, Martha, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us this morning. And I'd like to thank those of us who spent a little time learning a latte. Encourage people to visit your website for workshops. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon. So
Thank you so much, Sam.
uh,
Really enjoyed our time.
all right. So thank you all for joining us and have a fantastic day.